Okay, my first video was all within a few hours of having the scooter, and during this one I'm going to show some more recent riding around my neighborhood while I talk about some of the different things that I found out and attributes and other points about the scooter. So I've had it for a week. I've ridden it quite a bit, mostly in short stints inside and around my home or out in the cul-de-sac. My mother and father-in-law have both tried it, and even my 4-year-old daughter is actually pretty good at it, and she only rides it inside and on the carpet, and actually has to wear a couple backpacks with a little bit of weight in them because she's just shy of the minimum weight for the sensor to actually make it work. And that minimum weight is 10 kilograms or about 44 pounds. So I've fallen twice, and in addition to riding on in the areas that I've mentioned before, I've taken on 2 longer rides around my neighborhood, out on the asphalt, going up and down many long and gradual hills here on the streets around my home. And one of those times I did just a hair over 3 miles, and the other I did 3.6 miles before the battery died, and that was on 2 separate charges I'm talking about. So one of the first findings is that it's very relaxing and very easy. However, on both of those longer rides, I noticed that after about 20 minutes, the bottoms of my feet kind of really started to feel it, like the muscles that don't get used very often in the bottoms of my feet were tired or fatigued, and they even ached a bit. But otherwise, it was a great experience and very fun. The condition of the scooter is still very good. It has several scrapes and scratches from when I've either fallen off or just run off the unit while it was going, which sends the unit just rolling down the pavement. But operationally, it still works exactly as it did when I first tried it, and it seems perfect, with the possible exception of my battery, but I'm not 100% sure about that. About the battery, and regarding first the charging of the battery, here's a picture of the charger. It's tough to see, but it is keyed where it goes into the unit by a small groove on one side. The transformer here has a light on it that's red while it's charging and green once the unit is fully charged. On top of the scooter are 2 indicator LEDs. The round one, it will light up green when the 2 sides of the scooter are communicating with each other, or actually when the unit is properly level and properly balanced is what it really indicates. It will turn red if it's not properly balanced, and maybe that means it's tipped too far one way or the other, or one side is tipped too far relative to the other. The other light is obviously a battery indicator, which confused me a little bit at the beginning, and that's because the manual, which is kind of badly translated Chinese to English, it says that the light starts out at green when the battery's full, it turns yellow at a half battery, and then red at 20%, indicating you should actually start to charge it up. I found early on that when I started at fully charged, after what I thought was a really short time riding the scooter, my light would turn red, and I've never actually seen it turn yellow. So on one of my longest rides that I mentioned before, I started with a full charge and saw a green light. I saw a red battery light after just about a half a mile, and I ended up riding another 2.5 miles before I noticed that the LED was completely turned off altogether. And even though the motors on the scooter still seemed to work fine, there was a beeping sound that when I would turn the scooter on and off would sound really garbled, and the LEDs wouldn't light up at all. So I assume that's very close to being a dead battery. So right now I'm kind of working under the assumption that the green light means that the unit's fully charged, red means that it's like midway or in use, and red is what I see for the vast majority of using mine, and off means that it needs to be charged. So I'm not sure. I may have received a unit with a weak or defective battery, or maybe I did it myself by improperly charging it. And if anyone has experience with lithium batteries in other hobbies or RC helicopters or anything like that, you know that they require care and they have to be charged up correctly and stored correctly and so on. One more note, my unit charges completely from dead to full in exactly an hour and 20 minutes, and I've timed that twice and it's been exactly the same. So there's some differences that you see in these scooters if you're researching online or looking for one, and they're mostly aesthetic. You'll see that there's different hubcaps on the wheels, there are different logos on tops, there's a lot of different colors, there's different skins around the units, but I believe that these are mostly small customizations done by probably the same factory that's manufacturing all of these in China, for the various distributors that are purchasing them and selling them to the end users. The other possibility is that one factory distributed the first maybe newly invented product, and it was quickly reverse engineered and maybe is now being made in multiple or many factories in China. And if that's the case, there is the possibility that cheaper components are being used on some versions, which would affect things like the battery life I'm seeing. the expected distance, the weight limits on the unit, and incidentally, the weight limit on mine, the Smart Balance wheel, is 100 kilograms, which is just about 240 pounds. So this type of component swapping, it could be the reason why I'm seeing 3 to 4 miles instead of the 10-mile range that some of these units advertise. It could also be my battery, I'm not completely sure. The range is also affected by terrain and hills and the rider's weight. So I'm around 170 pounds and I was riding on quite a bit of hills and right in the street on pretty rough asphalt. So I'm sure I could get much better range if I was riding on perfectly flat terrain, say around the mall or something like that. I mentioned that I've fallen twice. Both times I fell right in my cul-de-sac, right out front of my house, and right onto the hard pavement. So that was kind of a bummer. The first time I fell, I just had a slightly skinned elbow. Not a big deal. I've had quite a bit worse in my my poser days as a skater as a kid. My second time, I actually fell straight down onto my tailbone, like legs in the air. Just imagine like straight down onto asphalt, and that hurt quite a bit, to where, like, no kidding, I had to ice it, and I was taking Advil and everything. And it was certainly a reminder that falling down in your teens is way different than falling in your 40s. So here's the thing: both falls happened when the scooter was completely perfectly still. I was standing still and I was just simply stepping off. And here's why. The worst part for me has been getting off, and what I've found is basically my two falls with this have been where I have stepped off, but before I get my second foot off, or even my first foot that I'm taking off back onto the ground, the scooter would move and kind of take my feet out from under me and just level me onto the ground. So the right way to get off is you keep your dominant foot, for me it's my right, kind of flat, and for me it's kind of aimed forward, and then step down, and the whole thing shouldn't move. Just like that. But what I was doing was, a couple of times for some reason I changed how I was stepping off, and right as I would take my first foot off before it had hit the ground, which it's on the ground now, I would lean my right foot back and get this, and just like this. And what happened to me 2 times is, just as that first foot came off, this moved back like that, and just, you can get it going pretty fast, and just took my feet out from under me and leveled me onto the sidewalk. And unfortunately it happened both times actually in my cul-de-sac, and I fell right on concrete, so that wasn't fun. Okay, so pretty much the last thing I'll mention is the speed warning. When this scooter reaches the top speed of, depending on which page in the manual you're looking at, either 10 kilometers an hour or roughly 6.5 miles per hour, or 15 kilometers per hour or roughly 9 miles per hour, it beeps a warning. But I thought that warning would just happen one time, but actually the warning is constant, which can get a bit annoying. That's it for now. I hope some of this info is useful, and I'm going to do one more video on this thing, and if I go through with what I have planned, it should end up being pretty cool. We'll see. Folks, I do really have to mention something extremely important from the manual. Here it goes. You are forbidden to swerve violently when driving fast, otherwise will cause dangerous. You are forbidden to ride sideways or swerve on the slope. It will lead to the balance angel skewing, then influence your safety. So remember that. And thanks for watching. If you want to rate this video and subscribe, that would be great.